The morning I found the red tag letter zip-tied to my pool gate, something inside me snapped like a brittle twig in winter. I just set my coffee on the porch rail, watching steam drift over the water. When I saw it bold letters screaming notice of violation, the paper crinkled in the breeze. The HOA logo sat there smug as a judge's gavel. Fence exceeds allowable height. Immediate compliance required. HOA must maintain access at all times. I stood there a minute, listening to the quiet. Blue jays chattered in the sycamore. Across the street, Old Man Rourke ran his leaf blower like it owed him money. The neighborhood smelled like cut grass and last night's charcoal. My hands shook as I pulled the zip tie loose and read it again. Too high access at all times? That fence was built the way my father would have done it, solid posts. True plumb. Gates that close with a clean click and higher, because my grandson, Luke, is fast as a rabbit and just learned how to climb. My wife, Susan, stepped onto the porch, tugging her sweater close. What is it now? Fence, I said. They want it lower. And they want a key to the gate. Her eyebrows lifted. She didn't say anything for 5 slow heartbeats. Then, over my dead body. The pool fence wasn't fancy, just cedar boards and heavy wire. But it felt like a promise: no more late-night sirens, no slip and falls. No chance in this world that a toddler could wander to the water. When our daughter Emily moved back home with Luke after the divorce, I put that fence up myself. You could run your palm along the top rail and feel confidence in every knot and screw. I hung a little brass bell on the gate so we'd hear it open. Peace of mind has a sound. By 9 o'clock, the HOA president, a woman named Doris, with a haircut sharp enough to singe, stood on my front walk with a board member and a clipboard. Mr. Walker, she said, crisp like fresh celery, you've ignored repeated advisories about your fence. Our guidelines are perfectly clear maximum for feet in rear property enclosures. Yours is 6. 5.5 on the high side, I said. This lot slopes. The code inspector signed off last month. Our guidelines supersede your personal preferences, she said. And the board requires unrestricted access to community features for maintenance and safety audits. I felt a heat rise in my chest. This isn't a community feature, ma'am. It's my backyard. And that's our pool. Doris smiled, the kind you use on a child or an idiot. All pools affect community liability, Mr. Walker. We need a universal key. Behind her, the other board member, a tall guy with an HOA badge on a lanyard, like he was TSA for his alias, took photos of my gate like it had committed a crime. The camera shutter ticked like a metronome for my temper. I pictured my dad, the man who laid bricks sun up to sundown for 30 years, who taught me a level never lies. He'd kept the old survey rolled up in a tube in his closet, along with a deed so old the ink had paled to ghost gray. He used to say, "You don't borrow safety. You own it." Here's my compromise, I said. You can call the county, read the code, and leave us alone. Doris scribbled something on her clipboard. Final notice expires in 72 hours. After that, daily fines accrue. We also reserve the right to correct non-compliant structures. Meaning what? Susan asked. Meaning, Doris said, we'll hire a contractor. I took one step closer. Gravel crunched under my boots. Set foot inside that fence without my say-so. The only contractor you'll meet is the locksmith changing the HOA office doors. Doris didn't flinch. See you in arbitration. By afternoon, a fresh email hit my inbox. Walker versus Cedar Glen, HOA Emergency Board Review. The subject line sat there like a rattlesnake in the path. I phoned the county inspector, a practical woman named Hernandez, who remembered my permit. You built it to code, she said. And if they want access at all times, they'll need to show you the clause that says they can have it. That night, we ate dinner by the pool like we always do cheap steaks. Baked potatoes, the soft hiss of the bug zapper working overtime. Luke raced toy trucks along the patio cracks while the bell on the gate chimed whenever the breeze toyed with it. Stars came out, clean and cold. And yet, over the fence, I could feel the neighborhood watching curtains twitching. The perfume of someone's dryer sheet drifting like a nosy ghost at 10. Headlights crawled down the street, slow and curious. The HOA patrol Sedañez, they had one rolled past, paused, and then idled by my curb. A flashlight beam traced the fence line like a finger on a bruise. I stood up so they could see me. The light snapped off. The car moved on. In bed, I lay awake, hearing the house settle into its old bones. I thought about my father's flag folded in the hall closet, the one we fly on Memorial Day. I thought about the way water reflects. Porch lights, how a backyard pool can be a mirror for your life if you're quiet enough to look into it. I thought about a fence being more than what it's a promise you make to the people sleeping under your roof. 72 hours, they'd said. 72 hours until fines. 72 hours until some stranger with a bolt cutter thought he had more right to my gate than I did. I decided then, if they wanted to fight, they were going to get one with receipts, with records. With every inch of paper my father saved, and every inch of ground he left me, the cedar posts outside kept their silent watch. The bell on the gate whispered once, just once, and I swore I heard my dad's voice, steady as ever. Son, stand plumb. Be level. Hold your line. I closed my eyes and started planning. The summons landed on my porch like a brick through glass. Petition for injunctive relief, filed by Cedar Glen Homeowners Association. They wanted the fence lowered to 4 feet within 10 days. A universal key delivered to the HOA office. And my favorite permission for authorized agents to enter my yard without notice, to inspect and ensure community standards. Susan read it twice, lips pressed thin. Emily paced the kitchen with Luke on her hip. He patted her cheek like he was trying to smooth her worry away. Dad, Emily said, if you want me and Luke to stay someplace else, you're home, I said. That's the beginning and end of it. I pulled the old tube from the hall closet and rolled the survey on the dining table. The paper smelled like attics and winters. The plat lines were clean, the signature crisp, 1978. The year my dad bought this place for less than a new pickup costs now. Next to it, I laid the covenants I'd inherited with the house. I'd read them before, of course, and laughed at the bits about lawn height and paint color. But I'd never really read them the way a man reads a map when he's lost. There it was. Section 12. Pools and safety enclosures. The language wove around itself like ivy, but a few things stood out. The HOA could require access for emergency situations, which made sense if the sirens were wailing, you open the gate. But the words at all times were nowhere. Instead, upon reasonable notice, and with the consent of the owner, not unreasonably withheld, I circled the lines, took photos, and called my cousin Mark the one who never shows up at Thanksgiving, without a story and a tie clip shaped like the scales of justice. Send it all, he said. Also send a picture of the fence, the permit, and any communication from Madam President. That evening, as the sun went soft and gold behind the sycamore, I heard footsteps in the gravel by the side. Gate, slow. Testing, the bell kissed the air. Stepped out with a flashlight and found the HOA patrolman. Lanyard guy from the clipboard holding bolt cutters, like they were part of his arm. His face froze in the beam. You're not entering my property, I said, voice low enough to rattle the boards. Put those down, he swallowed. Board authorized inspection. Show me the order. He held up a laminated card. It had his name and a photo and the HOA's crest. Not a court order, not even close. Leave. I kept the light on his hands. Now. He backed away, gravel squeaking. As he left, he muttered, You'll be sorry when you see the fines. Fines are cheaper than funerals, I said. And this fence stays. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line and reported a trespass attempt. The deputy who came out was a calm guy with a belly that said he took his coffee to Sugar's. He walked the fence with me, admired the posts, rattled the gate. If this wasn't to code, it would feel flimsy, he said. And it doesn't. He jotted in his notebook, glanced at the house. Look, off the record, we get a lot of HOA drama. Folks, forget the Constitution didn't end at your driveway. Keep your documentation handy. Next morning, Mark called. Good news, he said. We'll file a counterclaim and a motion to dismiss. You followed county code? Their access at all times language is a fiction. Oh, and I did a little digging. What kind of digging? The HOA president's brother-in-law runs a pool maintenance company. Got 3 new contracts last month, and Cedar Glen each includes key access to owner enclosures for routine service. My jaw clenched. You're saying they want a master key so their contractor can let himself into people's backyards and what? Upsell them shock treatments? I'm saying follow the money, Mark said, and keep a camera on that gate. That afternoon, I installed a trail cam on the sycamore, aimed straight at the latch. The bell looked small in the frame, but it was there, a bright dot of brass. I set my phone to ping if it caught movement. Then I sat at the kitchen table and printed every email, every letter, every note. I laid them out like cards, a hand I could win with. At sundown, a handful of neighbors drifted into my driveway like Pilgrim's Rourke, with his ball cap in his hands. The Garner kids from 2 houses over, even Mrs. Patel, who keeps roses like jewels. We heard what they're trying to do, Rourke said. They got my daughter last year, about a picnic table in the front yard. Said it was a permanent structure. Thing weighed 20 pounds. Mrs. Patel lifted her chin. They told me my tulips were not an approved color. I felt something settle in my chest, heavier than anger, steadier than fear. It was community, I recognized later. People who see a line overstepped and step toward it together. By 10, my phone pinged. Motion detected. I opened the feed. The gate shimmered in the night vision, the bell a silver dot. Then their hand reached over the top rail. Finger and thumb groped for the latch like a pickpocket. The bell quivered. I was on my feet and out the door before the second ping. The figure bolted when I hit the porch light. I caught a glimpse of dark hoodie, a flash of the HOA lanyard bobbing like a fish on a line. He sprinted down the alley and disappeared into the ink. I stood by the fence, breath clouding. The bell gave one last nervous chime, then stilled. I looked at that little brass circle and saw every reason I had to fight my daughter's tired smile. My grandson's muddy hands, my father's survey spread on the table inside, like a battle plan. The line had been drawn in cedar and wire. Tomorrow, we'd draw it in court. The courthouse in our county looks like someone took a wedding cake and taught it to frown. Stone columns, steps that make your knees count every year you've lived. A flag that snaps so sharp you feel it in your teeth. I wore my good boots and the tie Susan says makes me look like a respectable troublemaker. She squeezed my hand before we went through the metal detector. Whatever happens, she said, you didn't start this, but you'll finish it. We faced the judge in a wood-paneled room that smelled like polish and old arguments. The HOA sat to our left, Doris at the head of the table. Lips pursed like she'd been sucking a lemon since 1978. Their attorney was the slick kind with shiny shoes and a slicked haircut that says he's got a boating photo on his desk. He went first, spinning the story like cotton candy, dangerous fence heights. Community liability, uniform standards. We also require universal access, he declared, to ensure safety protocols may be observed at any moment. The judge peered over her glasses. At any moment? Yes, Your Honor. She tapped her pen. Show me where. He frowned. In the covenant section. I watched Doris flip pages like she was chasing a squirrel she'd already lost. The judge waited, patient as a Sunday. Finally, Doris jabbed a finger at a paragraph. The judge read, then read again. This says upon reasonable notice. That's not at any moment, counselor, he stammered. It implies. Words don't imply, the judge said. People do. Mark took our turn. He laid the county permit on the table with a neat thwop. Certified? Inspected? Approved? He slid photographs. The posts, the slope measurement, the latch placement, the bell. He offered our survey, Dad's brittle lines clear as faith. Then he queued up the trail cam clip. We all watched the gloved hand creep over the rail. The furtive pinch of the latch, the bell's tremble. The judge looked at the HOA table. Is that one of your authorized agents? Silence. You could hear the courtroom clock counting. Finally, the slick attorney cleared his throat. An overzealous volunteer, Your Honor, acting out of concern. Concern for what? The judge asked. Checking the tensile strength of someone else's property under cover of darkness? The room had a pulse, then a low, near-audible hum of regular people recognizing nonsense. Even the bailiff's mustache seemed to frown. Mark wasn't done. Your Honor, also have public records showing recent no-bid maintenance contracts awarded to a company owned by the HOA president's brother-in-law. Those contracts require universal access to owners' enclosures. A flush crept up Doris's neck. Those are routine agreements, she said. We're all neighbors here. We only want what's safe. The judge folded her hands. I have a neighbor, she said. He borrows my snowblower every January and returns it in March with half a tank. We're still neighbors. But he doesn't have the right to come through my bedroom window at 2 a.m. because the forecast says flurries. A small ripple of laughter ran through the room, quick and guilty. The judge's face stayed steady. Mr. Walker's fence meets county code. The HOA's covenants do not grant blanket access. The attempted entry at night is concerning. I'm denying the HOA's petition and granting the defendant's motion to dismiss with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm issuing a limited restraining order. No HOA. Agent may enter the Walker property without express written permission or a bona fide emergency. Costs are awarded to the defendant. She set her pen down. And I would suggest, she added, that the board consider its fiduciary duties with a more careful eye. Gavel wood on wood. The sound of a line being drawn straight outside. The sky was a cold blue bowl. Susan cried, the kind of tears that taste like relief and old fear rinsed clean. Emily hugged me hard, Luke's small hand patting my back like he'd planned it. Neighbors clustered on the steps, Rourke thumping my shoulder. Mrs. Patel pressing a paper sack of rose-cutting cookies into Susan's hands. Even Deputy Tushugars wandered by and tipped an invisible hat. Doris marched past, chin high, whispering to her attorney. She didn't look at me. That was fine. I wasn't looking for a victory lap. I was looking for quiet. We went home. The house met us like a dog at the door, happy we'd come back, relieved we weren't limping. The pool was glass still. The cedar posts stood the way they had on the day I set them square to the world, sure of their purpose. I unlocked the gate and let the bell speak its clear syllable. The sound spread across the water and came back softer, like the echo of peace. That evening, we grilled burgers and watched the sky melt from orange to a calm blue-gray. The Garner kids cannonballed. Luke laughed so hard he hiccuped. Emily sat with her feet in the shallow end, the kind of tired you feel good about because it comes after a day one honest. Susan leaned against me, her head fitting my shoulder like a missing piece. I walked the fence once more at dusk, palm steady along the top rail. In the dark reflection of the water, I saw my father the way I always do, bent over a level. I squinted shut, grin cocked to the side. You held your line, he seemed to say. That's what a man does. Here's the thing I learned. And maybe it's useful to someone with a stack of notices on their kitchen table right now. Sometimes standing up for your family looks like a courtroom and a pile of paperwork. Sometimes it looks like a brass bell on a gate, and the word no said without a tremor. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to stand where you're meant to stand. The lake past our subdivision was calm again, and for the first time in a long time, so was I. If you've had an HOA swing harder than their rulebook allows, tell me about it in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe some fights are worth having, the kind you fight with your feet planted and your voice level, subscribe. We'll stand up together, one straight fence line at a time.